The So the chains of toxic positivity, as Jessica mentioned, we work with amazing women, like we like to say, and a few very smart men. We tend to work with mostly women. And in this day and age, and especially for many of us that have been doing some kind of personal growth work for a long time, we hear, or we have this concept of, I got to stay positive. I got to stay positive. The law of attraction means I got to stay positive. And so today we're diving into, when is staying positive toxic? And so how do we break the chains of toxic positivity and escape the trap of staying stuck and settling?
Yeah, so Michelle, I don't know if it's your volume or mine, but you're a little quiet.
Okay, that's not usual. That
That is not usual. And welcome, Gunjan from Atlanta. Good to see you on here as well. And awesome. Thank you, Marla. Perfect. Appreciate that. So we are so excited you're here today for this webinar, Breaking the Chains of Toxic Positivity, Escaping the Trap of Staying Stuck and Settling. And some of the answers to the questions that we asked, the question that you asked when you were registering is, you're not stuck and maybe you don't feel like you're settling, but how to when you are the one that is the positive person in your family and everyone looks to you for that, how to handle that and take care of yourself as well and put yourself first. And we're going to talk about that today as well. So excited everyone is here, and we're going to just go ahead and get started. And Michelle is going to talk about intention.
Yes. So one of the things that Jessica and I absolutely love to do at the beginning of any workshop or any training or anything that we're doing is to have everybody set an intention. And each and every one of you joined us today because you had something in mind of what you wanted to create or what you wanted to get from this opportunity. And even if you think you were just joining because you absolutely love me and Jess and the Presario group, deep down, there's a reason that you're here. And one of the best ways that you can create value from any experience in your life is to simply lay a foundation and to create a conscious intention, if you will, of what it is that you would like to have, to feel, or to experience as a result of being here today, versus just being a passive participant. Because one of the things that sets Jessica and I apart is that we help you integrate the material, the concepts, whatever it is that we're doing, so that when you leave here, you can take action, if you will. And so just take a moment. Hopefully you've got something to write with, and just write down, why are you here today? Like, why did you decide to join us today? And it doesn't have to be really profound, simple. Why are you here? And what is it that you would love to get out of this time together or to accomplish together? And then the last question, which is the icing on the cake, if you will, is, how will you know that you got it? How will you know that you got it? So what will you see? What will you feel? What will you hear? Maybe what will you be doing? And again, keep it simple, but honor yourself by setting an intention. And we'll give you just a minute to do that. And just before I pause, the other thing, so often we show up and we've got so many other things on our mind. In a separate piece of paper, just write that down. We call it a brain dump. Just write down all those other things, and then you can pick that up at the end of this time together. But just for this time, be here with us now for you over this next 45 minutes to an hour. So why are you here?
And just while you're doing that, if you have questions, very specific questions, you can put that in the Q&A. If it's in the chat and the chat gets busy, we might miss it. So if you have a very specific question, put that in the Q&A and we'll be sure to get to that. We'll answer questions possibly as we go and most likely at the end. So if something comes up for you, just pop it in there. That goes to Michelle and I, and we will answer all those questions. Awesome. So we're going to move on. If everybody's ready, you have your intention written down. And so what is toxic positivity? I don't know if you all have heard that term before or not. Michelle keeps calling it positive toxicity.
And it's true, right?
It is true. It is true. So it's really the belief or attitude that we should always, always, always maintain a positive outlook, actually ignoring and invalidating any negative emotions that come up for us or negative experiences. And I know for me that I have done that in the past. I'll be like, no worries, I'm good. You know, all the things, everything happens for a reason. And these are things that, you know, often are true. And sometimes we tell ourselves because we're ignoring the truth or invalidating the negative emotions that are coming up. Because honestly, as little children, and I believe it's all women on the call here, as little girls, we're not really taught that it's okay to express negative emotion. And what I mean by negative emotion is our emotions like anger and sadness and guilt and shame. These aren't emotions that we're actually taught how to express and taught how to process. And often because our parents didn't know how to do that either, or the people that were surrounding us.
So good. And we've heard, right? So even though we're all women on the call, we all have men in our lives and father figures. You know, if you were raised with siblings or boys, or, you know, big boys don't cry. I'm a little bit older probably than most of you on this call, and many of you have seen there were back in the day with Good Housekeeping, all the things that a woman was supposed to do when her husband came home from work. So whoever your partner is, right, just imagine that if the house had to be clean, you had to put on something nice in your makeup and make sure you had a drink ready for your partner, spouse coming in, and that you wouldn't talk about anything negative. It's come from generations.
Yeah, for sure. Generations and generations back. And so we've kind of covered this, but it's this idea that we should just be positive. And I know for me, people have told me like, just be positive, stop thinking about the negative. And, you know, personally, my mom, just sharing vulnerably, is one of the most negative people I've ever met in my life. And so she would like, I did not want to be her. And I grew up in my mind thinking like, oh, I don't want to be like my mom. And so what was the opposite of my mom was always, always, always being positive, but not, you know, feeling and experiencing those other emotions. Just what I call is putting them on the shelf. I just put them over on the shelf and didn't even look at them.
That's right. Or this idea that, you know, the cup is always half full. And so what happens is that when we have an overemphasis on positivity, what this does is it denies the complexity of our human emotions and experiences, right? Many of you that are on the call have this belief, as Jessica and I do, that we are spiritual beings having the human experience. And the human experience, we all know, frankly, can get quite messy.
it can get quite messy. And just as a side note, it's really windy where I am. So if you're hearing like crazy wind sounds, it's because it's like very windy here. So just if you're hearing that. So why are we even talking about this toxic positivity? Why does it matter? So one is lack of emotional authenticity, and like I've alluded to, for a lot of my life, I suppressed or invalidated my own emotions. And so I could not even access those emotions because I had suppressed them so much, because I was always striving to appear positive. I was dismissing my important feelings. And that actually did take a toll on my mental health. And so it's just an opportunity to look at, where are you missing out on that emotional authenticity, not just with yourself, but then it keeps you from being emotionally authentic in your relationships.
Yeah, and Jessica, what you just said was so good. And I just want to repeat that about denying our important feelings. All of our feelings are important, and it's not just one or the other. If you look at life in general, it's comprised of the ups and downs, the happies and the not so happies. And so, me too, when I was growing up, I had a very authoritative father. And so we always walked on eggshells. You wanted to be careful. It wasn't that you couldn't be too happy, but you just couldn't be too anything. It was better if we were just neutral, and where the epitome of children were to be not heard and usually not seen as well.
Right? Good children, they spoke when they were spoken to.
That's right.
Back when I was growing up anyway. Um, it also keeps us stuck. It keeps our growth stifled, because it really it prevents us from addressing underlying issues and challenges in our life. And what Michelle and I do is we work a lot with the root cause, and getting to the root cause of why we're being who we're being, or why we're doing what we're doing, and really uncovering that root cause. But when we don't want to look at that, it can keep us stuck where we are and keep us in this, we'll call it like this zone of neutrality, where we eventually get to this place of numbness where we can't really feel super happy. And because we don't feel the other side of emotion, we can't feel sadness, we can't feel pain, we hurt, anger, all the things. And we really have a difficult time going to either side. And many of the women that we work with come in feeling numb because they haven't felt anything in years.
So good. And I was watching something just the other day. I know that we have a lot of parents or aunties on the call. And if you think too that one of the ways that not expressing all the entire realm or spectrum of emotions, think about little kids that when they throw a temper tantrum or something's going on, and then the adult in the room does everything they can to make sure they're not crying or that they're happy, or here, let me get you a toy. One of the things that we inadvertently do is we prevent these young kids from then learning how to navigate challenges, learning how to express their anger or sadness.
Absolutely. And then it can also keep us stuck in situations that aren't serving our best interest. And I don't know about you ladies or you, Michelle, but I've stayed in relationships, jobs, all kinds of things for too long,
Way too
because
long.
I was always, even though it might have been not a great situation, I was always looking for the positive and talking myself out of the negative, like talking myself out of um the things that I was feeling, and that made me stay. Like I should just be grateful for where I am and what I have, and it's all okay, when it wasn't
Yeah, it
necessarily all okay.
absolutely. And what we do is we are dishonoring or disregarding our discontent, which absolutely then leads us into settling for less than we deserve. So we're constantly striving for positivity, regardless of the circumstances, right? And so then what happens is Jessica was saying, well, I should be grateful. So then we settle, and we settle for mediocrity, or we settle for less than we deserve. And it, here's this is our deserving. This is one of the key areas that we address and that we work with women on is deserving. We think, on the other hand, the opposite of this is that, well, this is all I deserve, or I have to do A through Z so then I can earn and deserve. And we convince ourselves that we should be satisfied with what we have, even if it doesn't align with who we want to be, with our aspirations, with our goals, with our dreams. Because why? It's socially acceptable, right? Just stay here, be happy that we have a job. Don't get me started.
Yeah, just be happy with what you have. It's all good. And we're not saying to not be happy with what you have. However, is what you have what you really want? Is it what you desire? Is it what you deserve? Is it what you're worthy of? And if you're longing for something else, listen to that longing, like listen to that inner voice that's speaking to you, and take a step in that direction, right? Just take a step.
Yeah,
And
and
you're
maybe
here, so you're taking a step.
that's right. And maybe for some of you, your intention, for those of you that may have joined a little bit late, just being clear about what your intention is for being here today. And for some of you, it may be as simple as getting clarity about, what do I want? And for the first time, maybe in a long time, asking, especially for those of you that have had spouses, relationships, children, jobs, everything else that seemingly has to come first, maybe pausing in this moment and asking, what do I want? What do I want?
Yeah, I don't want to harp on the woman thing, but we are taught typically as women to put everybody else first and take care of everybody else's needs first. Um, yeah, we could talk a whole hour about just that, right? So the next thing why it matters is because it actually puts a strain on our relationships. And I know I can bring to mind people who I've met who I can never get past, like, I can never get past go with them because they're always like, life is great, everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. And that could be true, but there's no emotional vulnerability. And so it's being in a relationship like that makes it difficult to open up on our end with that person. So take a look. Are you the person in a relationship who is not being emotionally open and authentic with the people in your lives, and being willing and able to just take a step in that direction? And I have to say this, when I first started doing personal growth, I had been in this place of numbness for so long. I thought, oh, I could just be open and authentic with everybody I meet. Well, let's just
Mm.
say that doesn't always work out for the best. And what I would say is, like, use your discernment. You're not going to walk up to somebody you just met and just dump all your problems on them. I mean, you might, but I don't know that I would recommend that. However, it's like, how can I take a small step and then they feel safe and comfortable to open up to me a little bit, and then you grow from there.
And I'm going to suggest that the relationship that gets most strained is the relationship that we have with ourselves. Because when we're not being authentic, we're being superficial, and then we're being fake. And being fake, it's hard work when we're pretending to be something or someone that we're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just kind of spoke to this lack of authentic living. It's that fakeness, and we often don't know that we're doing it, but it just doesn't feel right. And so really tap into those feelings when you're not in alignment with who you are or what you're meant to be doing. You're living out of alignment, which means you're not living in authenticity, and you're not experiencing the full wholeness of life, really. And experiencing the full wholeness of life, sometimes it's sucky. Like sometimes it doesn't feel great. And however, when we don't allow that to happen, it can cause all kinds of issues in our mental health, our physical health, our relationships, all the things. And we're going to get more into that. However, it's just a noticing, and it's again back to the point that sometimes we're so numb we don't even know what we don't know, but it's a nudge. It's like wants to come out, it wants to express itself, the feelings and emotions. And what I would say is this: I put so many negative emotions on my little negative emotion shelf that at one point it actually broke. My shelf broke and I had a meltdown, and it lasted for a while, probably a couple months. But it was like I was laying in bed one morning and I literally was like bawling my eyes out. By the way, feeling all these emotions that I had put on the shelf for the last, let's just say 40 years, and feeling them all at once. And that was a tough moment in my life. It was a pivotal moment. And had I been processing and feeling and going through those emotions when they happened, I wouldn't have had that breakdown. Now, that's the way it went for me. And that's why we're here, because we don't want you ladies and any gentleman who might watch later to experience that. It's really being in the moment with the emotion and letting it go through your body and then letting it release out.
It's so, and I'm going to say this as well, is that when we're living at the superficial level, some of you may need to have a breakdown. And so we're going to give you permission to go ahead and do that so that you can experience the depth of life. And you know that I had to work this word in, the deliciousness, right? The deep relationships. And also it's the relationship with your mental well-being. And I'm going to tell you that Jess and I in a partnership as besties as well, it's no different than a marriage. And there are times that are tough and there are times that are great. And it's when we go through these tough times and we can authentically be real with each other, that then we know that our relationship will overcome anything and everything because we've done it already. And as we do that, then our relationship goes to the next level, as well as our individual relationships with ourselves, because then we take that out to the other relationships that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, Marla, thank you for sharing that. And, oftentimes when we're stuffing our emotions, when that snap does happen, which I kind of chuckle because I watched that show Snapped. And it the the reaction is out of proportion to the event typically because these emotions have built up over time, and the reaction is out of proportion, and then the person on the other side of that reaction is like, whoa, like, I thought you were good all of this time. Yeah, like, what did I do? It, absolutely. So,
Good.
so good. So, some signs of toxic positivity in your own life: invalidating negative emotions, and we've talked about that quite a bit.
Mhm.
Ignoring genuine concerns, so literally brushing aside concerns. And I would say for some women that we work with, it's their health. Like they have a health concern, but they just go with the thought process of, oh, I'll be okay, it's not a big deal, and then they brush it aside,
Mhm.
right? So they don't, one, they don't acknowledge it, they don't take care of it, they just go, it's going to be okay, and then they keep chugging along in their busy lives, right? And this could be many other issues, but just ignoring those genuine concerns, forcing positivity, and we've talked about that quite a bit, but just putting on that happy face, like, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen who might be watching later, I still catch myself doing this. It's
Mhm.
forcing positivity when I'm feeling overwhelmed or frustrated or angry or sad or whatever it is. And it's usually because uh, I don't want to put my stuff on other people. And yet we need other people in our lives to help us through those times.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to say about that. So one, I want to address the word of negative versus positive, if you will. We just don't have any other terms that we could use. But living a healthy life involves experiencing all the emotions. And there's actually studies, there's a couple articles that I was reading about when we were preparing for this webinar. And here's one thing that just really fascinated me is this concept that trying or attempting to only think positive thoughts can ironically cause you to experience or exacerbate the negative emotions. And it's because then it's forcing, if you will, right? It's requiring you to suppress and ignore instead of addressing it. And there are going to be times where you do have to have a game face, like we're doing this webinar. So if I had something this morning that I was all out of whack about, I wouldn't show up here and go, I'm not feeling it today. It's just been really, right? So we have to do that. And there may be times where you set aside for a moment something that's going on so you can address what you're doing right now, but you got to go back and address it so you can express it, right? Address it so you can express it, and then you can carry on. Our
That's right.
unconscious mind loves rhymes, so we'll be working some of those in.
Exactly. So you addressed a couple of these, but I think a really important one is avoiding conflict or discomfort, um, shying away from those difficult conversations or uncomfortable situations because you want to maintain a positive environment or atmosphere for whoever you're around. And what I can say is this is, and we teach this in the Enneagram when we're talking about a certain Enneagram type, is avoiding conflict actually creates more conflict. It creates internal conflict, and then it creates resent, and it creates bigger, longer term conflict with whoever you're avoiding that conflict with.
Yeah, and even the word conflict creates conflict.
Anything to add there?
Oh, you just cut out. Sorry. Say that again. So even the word conflict can create conflict and leads to avoidance, because if there's something that you're wanting to address, but you're worried about saying something to someone else because it's going to create conflict, right? Then we get into this on the offense, on the defense, or that it's got to be aggressive versus, you know what? I just need to address this. I need to have this conversation, because the avoidance of conflict outside of yourself will create a conflict inside of yourself, especially when we're thinking about, we're shooting on ourselves. Well, this is how I should act instead of, or how I should feel instead of, well, I'm feeling this way.
Yeah, and another sign is comparing your pain or your struggle with other people in the world, like, because yours is not as catastrophic, that it's not like your pain is not good enough to measure up, right? And so, of course, a lot of people have it worse than you do, and here's the deal, you're still going through what you're going through. And so that's a sign. If you're comparing, if you're going, well, they have it worse than me, so I just should be grateful. It's back to that. Like, I should just be grateful for what I have. If you're comparing, then that's a sign that you're using toxic positivity on yourself. The overuse of positive affirmations. And, a lot of us on this call have done quite a bit of personal growth work, and we're masters at reframing into the positive. And sometimes it becomes unconscious and we do it automatically, but it's really looking at, should I reframe something so quickly? Let me be with this for a minute, and then I can reframe it once I've dealt with it and not ignored it or put it aside, or, put it on my negative emotion shelf. Right. So just look at how, if you're reframing very quickly, reframing yourself typically, but also we tend to do this to other people when we've done personal growth work, is we reframe and we invalidate our own emotions and we invalidate other people's emotions.
Yeah, just address it, look at it. And it doesn't, every emotion doesn't need to be fixed, if you will. And that's, for a lot of us, human nature. We want to fix it. We want to make it better for someone. And sometimes what makes us better, if you will, is having to navigate some of those challenges.
Yeah. So another sign of toxic positivity is neglecting our own self-care practices and really denying ourselves the permission to take break or ask for support, because it doesn't align with this idea of being positive, and also this idea that we're superwoman and we can do it all. We can
I
handle
can
it
do it.
all, and we can do it all. And maybe we can do it all, but at what expense? And it's almost always at our expense, at the expense of our self-care and taking care of us, however we do that, whether it's taking the time to work out, to meditate, to be, just be, to take a bath, to get a massage. It's whatever self-care means to you, to go for a walk. It's, at the end of the day, you don't have time to do that because you've put everyone else first. And this not just includes kids and family, but this includes work and friends and other people. Is like, just take a look. Are you the one that's always there for everybody else and putting on that happy face, but you're never asking for the support that you give to other people, and or accepting the support that you give to other people, because people love to support us, and we're often, I'm good, I don't need any help, and then we're, dying of exhaustion when we go to bed at night.
Sure. And some of us on this call or who are watching this webinar, we get our sense of self-worth by being the go-to for everybody else. Right. And how many of us, in reference to what Jess was saying, how many of us wait until the end of the day to see if there's time left over to take care of ourselves versus scheduling that up front?
Yeah, absolutely. So perfectionism, some of you might not think you're perfectionists. However, it's a strong thread that runs through quite a few of us. And it's just this idea of always presenting yourself in this certain way of I'm happy, I'm successful. Um,
I got it all
even
together.
yeah, I've got it all together. And is that a true representation of you and what you're feeling and what you're experiencing? And by the way, for the perfectionists out there, or even the not perfectionists, we have a retreat for you coming up in September.
I'll piss off
So,
perfect. Another sign of the perfectionism is if you're not settling for anything less than like 100%, or some of you won't even leave the gate to get started because you don't have the perfect path lined up already. You're still getting ready to get ready.
yeah, yeah, you don't even start because you don't think it'll be perfect. So why start anyway? Right. And that, by the way, that could be dating.
Mhm.
That could be a conversation. That could be a new job. It could be a business, all the things. Right. So also you're judging your negative emotions. You see them as a sign of weakness, as a sign of failure. You're settling for mediocrity. And this is, when we convince ourselves again that we should be happy and satisfied with what we have, even if it doesn't align with you, your true goals, and your true aspirations. It's like back to I'm going to say it again. I should just be grateful for what I have, and my goals and aspirations don't matter.
And that ignoring the red flags, this is so key because I'm going to say that every single one of us is spiritual. Every single one of us is connected to a higher source. And as women in particular, I believe that, that sense of knowing is so deep in us. So listen to you. When that flag comes up, that whatever it is, that nudge comes up, pause, listen.
Yeah,
I should have
that's,
done that in so many dating relationships in my life, right?
yeah, pause and listen. And some of you know my story and some of you don't. Um, However, I was in a marriage to a really great person, but I was unfulfilled and I was not happy. I wasn't getting what I needed. And so it was looking at, what do I want? What do I need? And do I take this step out of a good relationship? It was good, like, and
Good.
it was good. And we're still friends to this day. And I knew that I could have the love and relationship that I really wanted. And so leaving that relationship and by the way, that's when I had the opportunity to process all the negative emotions I had set aside for all those years. And it was such a great growth opportunity for me to trust myself, to trust in myself, and to really step into the unknown where all the possibilities are. and to go after my dreams and what I wanted versus being stuck in the I shoulds for everybody else. Because one of the reasons I stayed for so long was I didn't want to disappoint everybody else. Ouch.
Yeah. So good. And this is so important, because what we're going to talk about now is how do we break free from this toxic positivity or positive toxicity. And I think the biggest thing, we become self-aware, and what stops us from breaking free is, I don't know how, or what will I do, or what if what's out there is worse than where I am right now. And so it's simply, as the slide says here, become aware. Just become aware of your thoughts, your beliefs, and your behaviors related to this positivity. Like, one of the action steps you can take over this next week is simply to observe yourself without judgment. Just notice, when am I being positive and I don't feel like it? When am I dismissing or invalidating my emotions, both in myself, but also in other people as well, right? When am I doing to other people what I don't want done to me?
Yeah, absolutely. And we put safe thought work on here because honestly, mindset and thought work, when done well, is amazing. It brings awareness, it brings the opportunity for choice to choose something different. But when we don't do it well, when we use growth work, mindset work, and thought work to beat ourselves up, that's not the purpose of it. That's not the point of it. It's not to notice a thought and then go, oh, I should have thought this instead. And then going down that rabbit hole of beating yourself up. It can be, just honestly, it can be a real mind fuck when it's not done well. And I spent some of my early growth work in this space of constantly feeling not good enough because I still had negative thoughts and feelings. Well, guess
Yeah,
what? We're human
we've
and we're
done
going
this
to
work
have.
for decades and we should be over it already. That's not true.
Yeah. And so thought work done well creates choice with self-compassion.
Say that
And when
again. That was good.
it creates choice with self-compassion. So when done well, it creates choice with self-compassion. And when you don't do it well, it actually stunts your growth. It stunts your emotions. And, we'll call it emotional bypassing. So that's putting the feelings over on the shelf, right? The negative feelings is we're bypassing the emotions that we don't want to feel, that we don't want to deal with, right? So,
Yeah, go ahead,
go ahead.
Jess. What you want to do is validate and process your emotions and your feelings. And by validate, that doesn't mean talking to 20 of your best friends, right? It's like just being with yourself, pausing for just a moment. And this is simply a practice. Many of us don't give ourselves just a moment, a few moments to be. And so practice acknowledging and accepting your emotions, all of the emotions, the positive ones, the ones that you love, and the ones that you don't love so much, without judgment, right? Give yourself the grace that you give other people in your life. And then practice the mindfulness. This is one of the ways that you can regulate your nervous system. And Jess, do you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Yeah. So this is when I talked about in the beginning, we're holistic coaches. We look at all the bodies. But here's the deal. We have to learn how to regulate our nervous systems because most of us through our lives have been in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. And there's this term that I've heard recently, which is so profound to me. It's called functional freeze. It's like we're showing up and we're doing all the things, but we're frozen in our own lives for us, basically. That's like the gist of it for me.
Doing the
But
same thing over and over.
really learning how to regulate your nervous system so that you can feel safe, that your body knows it's safe, your unconscious knows it's safe. And then that's when you can really make great choices for yourself. So you can do this through a variety of ways. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. If you're feeling in the moment overwhelmed or stressed, you can tap your hands on your legs. Like, just go ahead and try it and see how that feels. You can go outside and put your feet on the ground and ground yourself. You can breathe. I always say breathing, drinking water, and taking a walk will change your life. And it's true, because these are three things that most people don't do. And when we breathe, that's such an amazing way to regulate your nervous system. You can, those of you that know me, I love crystals and rocks. Like, I hold on to this rock quite a bit, and it grounds me. It helps me feel at peace, honestly. And it doesn't have to be huge things. You don't have to sit in your cross-legged position on your meditation pillow and for 30 minutes. Just start learning how to regulate your nervous system. Take 1 minute a day, start there, and breathe, ground, feel in your body. Most of us spend a lot of time outside of ourselves, and that's why we feel ungrounded, because we're like literally outside of our body. So bring yourself back to your body. And that's what mindfulness can do for you. And then you can start spending time journaling about your emotions. Now, listen, I don't love journaling, however, because I always think when I die, who's going to come over and burn my journals? Because I don't want anyone to read them. But it's one way to start getting those emotions out and releasing them out of your body. And I'm just going to go back to breathing and then scanning your body to see what's going on. Your unconscious has the perfect blueprint, the blueprint for perfect health. And it is the perfect blueprint for perfect health. And so take the time to scan your body and feel where because what happens is we hold on to our negative emotions in our body, and then that causes disease. Again, a whole nother
A whole nother webinar. That's right. And so
webinar.
the opportunity then is to challenge or question your beliefs. And again, when we say challenge, it's not like get your dukes up and let's go. But when you have this belief that comes up, and it's simply to ask, is that true? Is that really true? And even especially these beliefs about your emotions and how you should be feeling or not feeling. And again, just this thought or this belief that, well, I should be positive, other people are looking up to me.
Well, and I would say this, people are looking up to you. And when you show emotional authenticity, you're giving them permission to do the same thing. 100%.
Absolutely.
The next is set healthy boundaries. And I won't call you out. One of you ladies had this comment in your form about showing up for your family and always being the one to put on the happy face, and they're looking to you for that. And we have a webinar on boundaries. It's a really good one. It's on our YouTube channel. So it's just at Presario Group on YouTube. Go watch that webinar and then start listen, you don't have to like revamp your life overnight. The people in your life won't know what hit them. It's like the boundary tornado came through. It's like, just start having conversations with them and letting them, one, know that you're human too,
Mhm.
that you need support and love, unconditional love from them as well, and that you have needs, and start setting boundaries with the people who you need to set boundaries with. And oftentimes, I'll speak for me, this can be adult children. It's the relationship changes from, you know, teenage, high school years went into young adult, and you you have to be proactive, or you get the opportunity to be proactive in changing that relationship with them in a healthy way versus still them treating you like mommy or daddy, and you treating them like a little child that you're taking care of, because they're now fully grown ass adults, right?
That's right. And setting healthy boundaries is setting healthy boundaries with yourself as well, saying yes when you want to say yes, no when you want to say no, and practicing self-compassion, treating yourself with kindness, with the grace that you would treat somebody else with. Like many of us would not talk to our kids or treat our friends the way that we treat ourselves. And so nurture yourself. And, this leads into the encouraging authentic conversations. And to do this, it's creating a safe space first for you and then for other people as well. And being open about that so you can have an honest conversation about how you're feeling, about your emotions, about your experience, whether it's positive or negative. And setting time aside. Jess and I do this, and we also role model this in our boundary class. But, just saying, I want to talk to you about our conversation or about how I'm feeling. When is a good time to do that? So you're not just laying it on somebody.
That's right. And then, surround yourself with supportive people who accept you where you are and give you a safe place to authentically express your emotions and actually encourage that. And, if you don't have that or you need that, well, one, we're here, but also, consider seeking professional help, whether that's from a coach, a support group, a therapist, whatever it is for you, especially if you are struggling with breaking free from a situation that you've settled for or you're stuck in. It's okay. It's actually courageous and strong to seek outside help and support.
I just want to say this about those of you that don't want to ask for support because you think it's weak or vulnerable or whatever. I want you just to bring to mind the last time that you felt really good about helping somebody else. And when we don't accept support, we rob them of that feel good. How's that for a twist?
Twist. So this is just some examples of healthy conversations. And by the way, this could be a conversation with yourself, right? Like, how often do we tell ourselves, just get over it? Be positive. Everything happens for a reason. Good vibes only, right? Stop being so negative. Other people have it a lot worse, that comparison thing. Smile. Crying won't help. And we talk ourselves out of how we're feeling, or we invalidate other people's emotions and feelings. You can
Yeah.
say this to yourself.
Instead, you can say, I know this must be hard, or I can't even imagine how hard this must be. I'm here for you. I believe in you. And it's important to let it out, express it. Is there anything I can do to make this easier for you? I love you. I'm here for you. Right? I mean, just to say that sometimes to someone, I love you, or to say it to yourself. And it's okay to feel bad sometimes. Again, is there anything I can do? And I know things are tough right now. And offer people, do you want to talk about it? And if they say no, let them be, or can I hug you?
One of the most profound, and I wish I had looked it up. I don't remember the name of the book, but it's by Thich Nhat Hanh, I think is how you say his name. And one of the most profound things, because for those of us who like to fix people, help people, relieve them of their suffering, whatever it is, make them feel better, is just to let people know, I see that you're suffering and I am here for you. I am with you. And that's it. It was so profound to me when I read that in one of his books. And it's just letting people know that you're there with them. You don't need to fix them. By the way, you don't need to fix yourself, because there's nothing broken and there's nothing missing.
So we're going to wrap up with 4 simple steps on how to create lasting change. And the first one looks so formal: release and repattern your limiting beliefs, emotions, and patterns. In other words, let that shit go. And when something's coming up that you know isn't true or isn't life-giving, let it go and replace it with an empowering or a thought or a belief that's in alignment. And then create a compelling future, right? What is it that you want? So many times we know this isn't what I want. Well, what do you want? It can be a simple goal. And make sure it's your goal, not somebody else's. And make sure that you're not putting your goals on anybody else in your life as well, too. And the thing about the vision is, don't worry about the how. See, the problem with the vision or the goal is that when we don't see how, then we tend to pull back. Either we shrink back or we pull our vision back and make it something smaller. There we go, settling again. And then take action. Take purposeful, directed action and set and enforce healthy boundaries. And in that action, not just being busy. And when we're going for what it is that we want, that fulfilling, delicious life that we want, we've got to take action that's in alignment with it. And as we said, this life, it gets messy in the middle, and that's okay. Just know that it's part of life and you're okay. And all you need is the next step. You don't need the next 1,000 steps. And then lastly, to stay focused on what do you want, on what you want. And what is it that you want? And if you're saying, I don't know, that's bullshit, right? Get clear. You know what you want.
Well, I don't know if it's bullshit. I just think so many people haven't ever asked themselves that question. And so it takes some willingness to go on some discovery with yourself and some internal work of like, okay, I've been living this life for all these years and I never ever asked myself, what do I want? And so now I have this opportunity, I have some new awareness. So I'm going to start asking myself, what do I want? And by the way, you can ask yourself this all the time and the answers might change, and that's okay. Perfectly fine. I encourage you to ask yourself all the time, what do I want?
Or what would I love?
Yeah. Or what would I love? Or, what's in alignment for me?
Yeah.
What's in alignment? And so, what is one actionable step you can take from what you learned here today? Are you going to take a step? We think that you are. We know that you are. And maybe put it in the chat, and we're going to stay on if anyone has questions. I know we're at time. But what I would say this, if you have a desire to work with us, to get some support from us, schedule a call with us, because what we do is we customize and tailor fit our programs to you. So we have many programs, we have retreats, we have all kinds of offerings. However, we want to customize to you what you're looking for at whatever point in your journey you're at. So schedule a call with us. You can go to our website, presariogroup.com, and schedule a call with us. And, it's like a 45-minute call, and we'll just talk to you. There's no pressure. There's no sales pitch. It's just what's right for you, where you are in this moment. And we would love to hear from you. And
go ahead and put a takeaway in the chat, because that helps cement it in and integrate it, or your step that you're going to take.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And yay, thanks. Great note to leave with choice, with self-compassion. I'll spend time reflecting, doing the best to uncover what it is that I want to do. Stay focused on what you want. Any other questions? Feel free to put that either in the Q&A or the chat.
Yeah, and I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, allow yourself to feel your emotions, Lydia. And we're going to do some work on that with you.
That's right. Breakthrough session. Let that shit go, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody who came today, who took the time to choose yourself and to be here with us. And we certainly hope that you got some value out of this, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Take care.